Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about blind merged mining. So blind merged mining is an attempt to use the stability and the visibility of the L1 blockchain to record sidechain blocks. So I'll explain how this works. So typically you have, this is your L1, your layer 1 Bitcoin. You have these blocks going forward. And then you'd like to say, okay, I have a sidechain. At some point in the sidechain, I'm going to record a block by including a single transaction, a small transaction, into this L1 block. This block here, my sidechain block, it's hashed into some sort of small information, and it's recorded here. And the rules in order for this to work, and this is why there has to be a BIP, is there has to be a rule that these L1 miners can only include one sidechain blockchain, or one sidechain block per sidechain, right? So you can't have two of these, otherwise this whole thing is chaotic. So you include one block here, and it's given by a transaction with a fee. And so what this means is these miners, these L1 miners, are going to look at all the candidate blocks that are showing up in the mempool, and they're probably just going to take the one with the highest fee, because basically they're blind. All they see is the fee. They just record this transaction. So say this is block 10 in your sidechain, then block 11 happens, it gets recorded. There's some transaction here. Block 12 happens. Okay, now the L1 miners are blind. And so what they don't do is they don't actually see the block. They don't verify the block satisfies the sidechain rules. They might not even know the sidechain rules. They're blind. That's the design. And so it's completely possible that this block 11 was mined by somebody who decided to send all of these sidechain coins to themselves without any valid signatures. Right? You can do that. You can put a bunch of invalid transactions in a block. You can hash the block. You can record it up here and pay a high fee. And the L1 miner doesn't know because they're mining blind. So obviously what's going to happen is the sidechain nodes are going to look at this block and say this is invalid. And then what do? Well, you have to move forward. This block 11 that got recorded was bad. So you need a new block 11. Fine, that's not a problem. You just say the next miner comes along, the next sidechain miner comes along and says, I'm going to write a valid block 11, and it's going to point to my block 10, and it's going to write my block 11. Great. Now, this mechanism for going back and rewriting, or writing different blocks, has to be just, it has to apply to any possible level. You just have to, in order to write a sidechain block, all it needs to do is point to some block before that was mined. So it's also possible that this miner here, instead of rewriting block 11, which was invalid, they could also rewrite block 10, which might have been valid. L1 miners are blind. They don't know. So this block here could be overwriting a valid block. And you have to do this. You have to have this in here because there's no way to really determine when a block is validated, who is in charge of saying whether the block is validated. The nodes will be eventually ignoring invalid blocks, but you don't know how long it's going to take for the block to reach the nodes. So you have to have some sort of mechanism for rewriting blocks. The problem now is that this leads to a situation where you have really horrible finality. So what's the cost now? Like if I were to say, if I wanted to do a long reorg, right? Let's just say ... Let's say we have block 9, we have block 10, block 50, block 51. Let's say I wanted to do this, I want to do like a 40 block reorg or something. Well, in Bitcoin, you would have to go back 40 blocks and get really, really, really lucky, or you'd have to have nearly 50% or more than 50% of the chain, or of the hash rate. The probability of actually accomplishing a 40 block reorg in Bitcoin decreases exponentially fast as you get away from 50%. So if you don't have more than 50%, you're not going to do this. And you don't. At this point, nobody does. But for this sidechain, if you want to go back and rewrite this, you can publicly go, and I'm going to say, I'm going to rewrite my block 10. Another arrow here, the arrow goes here. I'm going to just rewrite this. All I have to do is outbid the miner for the block 52, right? All this took was a little bit of cash. Now, the thing is, I don't need to be lucky to get the next one. I just have to have the L1 Bitcoin to do it again. So I say I won block 10. Now I'm gonna rewrite block 11. And then I'm gonna rewrite block 12. And I'm just doing this just by outbidding everybody. I don't have to have any luck. There's no probability involved. It's just an auction mechanism. All I have to do is pay. So this leads to this situation where you can cause massive chaos on this. And I think I'll illustrate this by talking about something which came from a conversation of Mike Kelly and Hasu a few years ago called a purge attack, which is, it's an interesting thing which very hard to do in Bitcoin, but now you can do it on an L1. And the idea is you have this, let's look at the sidechain blocks. You have, say you got a blocks 100, mine to blocks 150, include a bunch of transactions, and then say 99 is here. I want to completely go and I want to rewrite block 100, right? So I do this reorg, and I rewrite all the blocks, say, through 170. And I can just pay for this, right? I just pay for it. I just outbid all the other miners. I pay for this. And the thing about these is what I do is I don't include any of the transactions that were included here. So these 100, or these 50 blocks or so that got recorded with all these transactions that people were like using in their chains and using, accepting them and wherever they're accepting this sidechain as payment. These are all gone, and these are rewritten with say nothing or with different transactions. That means that all these transactions can now be double spent. Anybody who, say, accepted 10 blocks as confirmation time now is at risk for a double spend. And so that's why this is called a purge attack. It's from the movie The Purge. You have this time period where you can sort of commit any sort of crimes, right? So anyone who's spent something in here can now double spend. Now, this can be done very intentionally. It's not like you just get lucky one day. You just say, I got really lucky and I got 70 blocks in a row. You go and you pay for 70 blocks in a row. You rewrite these 50 blocks. Your chain is the correct one. And if you are intelligent and deliberate about this, you could do like hundreds or thousands of smaller double spins, $50 double spins, $200 double spins. You don't have to go for this like huge, $10 million double spin where somebody might actually ask for, a huge confirmation time. And that's another problem here is that, like, if you do want to accept like a $10 million transaction, in order for it to be final, you have to multiply the block reward in a linear way to get up to that $10 million. Otherwise, somebody could just pay to reverse that transaction. Hundreds of blocks, thousands of blocks, depending on the block reward. So this mechanism, this auction mechanism means you can do a purge attack. You can do this for fun if you just want to destroy the chain. You can also do this for profit if you're trying to double spend, especially if you're double spending in coordination with thousands of different double spenders. So the finality is horrible. That's one problem with blind merge mining. The other is, you have horrible finality. And the other is it leads to anti-competitive behavior. So the idea with this is, I think that the design of blind merge mining assumes that the sidechain miners are sort of NPCs. They're just kind of, they're not very smart. They're able to compute a bunch of, or they're not very crafty, I guess. They're able to compute a bunch of transactions and create blocks, but they're willing to bid 99 cents on the dollar, 99.5 cents on the dollar to get further, to keep the blockchain moving forward and sending all the fees to L1 miners. But in reality, these are smart people. These are corporations or individuals who have spent lots of capital and have spent lots of, developed lots of infrastructure in order to create these blocks, and they don't want to just fight each other for a half cent on the dollar profit when they can just not. And the way they just not is, first they're going to decide there's going to be a few of these are going to emerge, and they can collude. It's very easy to collude once you see who the other players are, and they can collude that they're not going to say spend more than 10 cents on the dollar. And how do you do this? Well, if it's open, and so anyone can go mine. They can create their new block. They can mine. Pay 20 cents on the dollar for a new block, but these anti-competitive miners can then just orphan their chain, right? So, say you have this collusion. You have I don't know, five miners that want to mine the entire sidechain for themselves, and they want to pay 10 cents a block or 10 cents on the dollar. They want to pay 10%. Some joker comes along and says, well, I'm going to bid more. I'm going to pay 20 cents. I'm going to mine a block, and the L1 miners are going to include this, and this joker is going to come on, and they're going to pay 20 cents on the dollar worth of L1 Bitcoin. But then what these collusive, this cartel, what they're going to do is they're just going to write over this joker's chain, right? So, somebody paid 20 cents on the dollar. Now these guys are just going to outbid. They're going to pay $1 on the dollar, and they're going to outbid for the next chain. They're not going to lose money, but they're going to teach this joker a lesson. So what this leads to is an anti-competitive situation where whoever is willing to win a war of attrition, whoever is willing to win a dollar auction, whoever is willing to continue to bid more in order to teach anyone who would try to challenge them a lesson, they are going to end up dominating the sidechain. And it's really easy because all you have to do is pay more than other people out there. You don't have to be lucky. And that's a huge difference between proof of work. Proof of work requires that you get lucky. And so you're putting all your hashes out there all the time, hoping to get lucky. You can't just sort of pull money out of your bank and win the next one because you are determined, right? And so for this reason, I don't see why blind merge mining would be really attractive to someone building a sidechain. You could come in, it would be probably taken over by a cartel, or it could be just kind of wiped out by someone who just wants to mess with it because they can do it. Maybe they want to short some derivative or something associated to it, or they just want to mess with it because they see it as competition, or they want to do a double spend. You can just play all sorts of crazy games with it. There's horrible finality, and I think it will be monopolized pretty easily.